The galaxy had seen countless wars. For centuries, alien races fought each other over planets, resources, and power. Entire civilizations were wiped out, and stars burned brightly before collapsing into darkness. But Earth, a small blue planet in a quiet corner of the universe, remained untouched. It wasn't because Earth was special or protected by some higher power. The truth was simpler. No one thought it mattered. Humanity, with its short history and fragile existence, seemed too insignificant to notice. Ethan Carter sat in his small apartment, staring at the news on his screen. He was an engineer, not a soldier or a politician, but what he saw made his stomach churn. Alien ships, massive, sleek, and terrifying, hovered above Earth's atmosphere. They weren't here to explore or trade. Their message was clear: surrender or be destroyed. Ethan turned off the screen and sighed. He thought about Claire Bennett, his girlfriend, who worked at a military base. She always talked about how humanity wasn't as helpless as people believed. But even she couldn't have predicted this. Claire was already deep underground in a secure command center when Ethan tried calling her. She didn't pick up, so he left a voice message. "Hey, just wanted to check on you. Stay safe, okay?" He knew she wouldn't hear it anytime soon. Claire was busy analyzing data, running simulations, and preparing for whatever came next. She had always been confident, almost stubborn, about humanity's ability to survive. But now, even she felt the weight of the situation. Outside, cities buzzed with panic. People crowded supermarkets, buying supplies they didn't need. Others barricaded themselves inside their homes, hoping the aliens wouldn't notice them. Some prayed, while others cursed the stars for bringing this disaster upon them. Governments scrambled to respond, but there was no playbook for an alien invasion. Most leaders assumed Earth would be ignored, that humanity's lack of interstellar travel made it invisible. They were wrong. What the aliens didn't know, and what humanity hadn't advertised, was that Earth wasn't entirely defenseless. Decades ago, scientists and engineers began working on secret projects. These initiatives weren't driven by ambition or greed. They were born out of fear. Humanity had watched the skies for centuries, wondering if anyone was out there. When telescopes revealed distant wars and dying worlds, governments realized Earth might one day face the same fate. So, they prepared. Ethan was part of one of those projects. His work focused on advanced propulsion systems, technology that could make spaceships faster and more efficient. At first, he thought it was just theoretical, something that might never see the light of day. But now, everything had changed. His designs were being used to build weapons and defenses capable of taking on the invaders. It was surreal to think his quiet life as an engineer had led him here. As night fell, Ethan walked to the rooftop of his building. From there, he could see the glowing dots of alien ships hovering silently above the horizon. They looked calm, almost peaceful, but he knew better. Inside those ships were beings who saw Earth as nothing more than a resource to exploit. He clenched his fists, feeling anger rise in his chest. Earth wasn't perfect, but it was home, and he refused to let anyone take it away. Back at the command center, Claire stared at a map of the globe. Red dots marked areas where alien activity was most intense. She tapped her pen against the table, thinking. Humanity had one advantage. Surprise. The aliens expected humans to cower or surrender. They didn't know about the weapons hidden beneath mountains, the drones ready to strike, or the soldiers trained for this exact moment. Claire smiled faintly. Maybe, just maybe, humanity had a chance. Unknown to both Ethan and Claire, plans were already in motion. Leaders from around the world gathered in secret, discussing strategies and pooling resources. Engineers worked tirelessly to finalize weapon systems. Pilots climbed into cockpits, preparing for battle. The calm before the storm was ending. Soon, humanity would show the galaxy that it wasn't just another weak species waiting to be conquered. It was ready to fight and win. The aliens didn't understand what was happening. They had come to Earth expecting an easy victory, a quick show of force to bring the humans to their knees. But something about the situation felt off. Their scans of the planet revealed no signs of advanced weaponry or significant defenses. The humans appeared disorganized, panicked even. Yet there was an undercurrent of activity, subtle, but undeniable. General Samuel Hayes stood in a dimly lit room, surrounded by maps, screens, and people who looked like they hadn't slept in days. He wasn't a tall man, but his presence commanded respect. Around him were scientists, engineers, and military leaders, all working together despite their differences. Among them was Ethan Carter, who had been summoned to explain his work on Project Aegis. Ethan felt out of place, but he knew this was important. His technology might be humanity's best chance at survival. "Tell me again," General Hayes said, pointing at a diagram on the screen. "How does this system work?" Ethan cleared his throat. "It's an energy-based weapon," he began, keeping his voice steady. "Instead of firing physical projectiles, it uses concentrated beams of energy to disable or destroy targets. It's fast, precise, and doesn't rely on traditional ammunition." Hayes nodded slowly. "And you're sure it can handle their shields?" "Yes," Ethan replied. "Their shielding technology isn't as advanced as ours. If we hit them hard enough, we can break through." Claire Bennett, sitting nearby, added her thoughts. "We also mapped out their communication networks. If we can disrupt those first, it'll leave them confused and unable to coordinate." Hayes leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. He glanced at the clock. Time was running out. The aliens had given Earth an ultimatum: surrender within 6 hours or face annihilation. Humanity had no intention of giving up, but they needed a plan, and fast. "We'll strike first," Hayes decided. "Hit them where it hurts before they know what's coming." The room erupted into quiet murmurs of agreement. Everyone understood the risks, but they also knew they couldn't afford to wait. Flair began outlining the strategy. Drones equipped with cloaking devices would infiltrate the alien fleet, disabling communications and gathering intelligence. Once that was done, human fighters would launch a coordinated attack, targeting key ships in the invaders' armada. Jake Monroe was one of the pilots chosen for the mission. A former test pilot known for his daring stunts, Jake had spent years flying experimental aircraft. Now he found himself preparing for something far more dangerous. As he suited up, he thought about his family back home, his younger sister, Lily, and his aging father. He wondered if he'd see them again. Shaking off the thought, he focused on the task ahead. Meanwhile, Rachel Dawson worked tirelessly at a remote installation deep in the mountains. She was responsible for operating one of Earth's secret railguns, massive weapons capable of firing projectiles into orbit. These railguns had been built years ago as a last resort, hidden from prying eyes. Now, they were being brought online for the first time. Rachel's hands moved quickly over the controls, checking systems and calibrating settings. She felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her, but pushed the fear aside. As preparations continued, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling of doubt creeping into his mind. What if his technology failed? What if the aliens were stronger than anyone anticipated? He glanced at Claire, who seemed calm and focused. Her confidence gave him strength. Whatever happened next, humanity wouldn't go down without a fight. Back at the command center, General Hayes addressed the team one final time. "This is it," he said, his voice firm. "We've trained for this moment. We've prepared for this moment. And now we act. Remember why we're doing this. For our families, our homes, and our future." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed his words. Outside, the alien ships still loomed ominously in the sky. But inside, determination burned brighter than ever. Humanity had awakened, and it was ready to show the galaxy what it was made of. Minutes later, the first wave of drones launched silently into space. Cloaked and undetectable, they slipped past the alien fleet's perimeter. Their mission was simple: disable communications and weaken the enemy's defenses. Behind them, human fighters waited, engines humming softly as pilots gripped their controls. The countdown had begun. Earth's fate rested on the shoulders of ordinary people, scientists, soldiers, engineers, and pilots. None of them had asked for this fight, but none of them would back down either. The aliens had underestimated humanity, and soon they would pay the price. The first wave of drones moved silently through space, their cloaking technology rendering them invisible to the alien fleet. These small, unassuming machines carried no weapons, but they didn't need them. Their purpose was sabotage, disabling communications, jamming signals, and creating chaos within the invaders' ranks. One by one, the drones reached their targets, attaching themselves to the hulls of alien ships and releasing electromagnetic pulses. Within minutes, the aliens' carefully coordinated network began to collapse. On Earth, Claire Bennett monitored the operation from the command center. Screens displayed real-time data as the drones worked their magic. Alien ships that had once moved in perfect formation now drifted aimlessly, their crews scrambling to figure out what had gone wrong. Claire allowed herself a small smile. The plan was working. Humanity had struck the first blow, and it had been a clean, precise hit. High above the planet, Jake Monroe sat in the cockpit of his fighter, waiting for the signal to launch. His squadron, codenamed Daggerwing, was tasked with targeting the flagship of the alien armada, a massive vessel bristling with weapons and surrounded by smaller escorts. It was a dangerous mission, but Jake didn't feel fear. Instead, he felt focus, his mind sharp and clear. He glanced at the photo taped to the dashboard, Lily and his dad smiling back at him. "For you," he whispered softly. When the order came, Jake's squadron launched into space. The sleek fighters, powered by advanced engines Ethan had helped design, accelerated faster than any human craft before. They weaved between the disoriented alien ships, avoiding detection thanks to their stealth coatings. Jake led the way, his hand steady on the controls as he guided his team toward the flagship. Rachel Dawson stood in her mountain installation, watching the battle unfold on her monitors. Her railgun was ready to fire, its barrel aimed skyward. She had rehearsed this moment countless times in simulations, but nothing compared to the real thing. As Jake's squadron approached the flagship, Rachel received new coordinates. Adjusting the targeting system, she prepared to fire. Her heart pounded as she counted down the seconds. Then, with a deep breath, she pulled the trigger. A massive projectile shot into the atmosphere, its speed unimaginable. Moments later, it slammed into one of the flagship's escort ships, tearing through its hull like paper. The explosion lit up the darkness of space, sending debris spiraling in all directions. Jake's squadron took advantage of the distraction, diving toward the flagship. Using codes stolen by the drones, they managed to breach its shields. Inside the alien ship, alarms blared as systems failed. The crew scrambled to respond, but it was too late. Jake's squadron unleashed a barrage of missiles, each one striking with pinpoint accuracy. The flagship groaned under the assault, its once imposing structure crumbling. Finally, with a deafening roar, the ship exploded in a burst of light, sending shockwaves through the alien fleet. Back on Earth, people watched the skies, mesmerized by the flashes of distant explosions. News outlets broadcast live footage, though few understood the full scope of what was happening. In the command center, General Hayes nodded approvingly. The flagship's destruction had dealt a crippling blow to the invaders' morale. Without their leader, the alien forces were left confused and vulnerable. Ethan Carter stared at the screens, his chest tight with emotion. He had spent years working on the technology that made this possible. Now, seeing it in action, he felt a mix of pride and disbelief. Humanity wasn't just fighting back, it was winning. Claire turned to Ethan, her eyes shining with determination. "This is just the beginning," she said. "We've shown them we're not afraid. Now, we finish the job." As the battle raged on, humanity pressed its advantage. Railguns fired again and again, targeting descending troop carriers and supply ships. Pilots like Jake pushed their fighters to the limit, taking down enemy vessels with relentless precision. The aliens, who had come expecting an easy victory, found themselves overwhelmed by a foe they hadn't anticipated. 5 hours had passed since the invasion began. What started as a seemingly hopeless situation had turned into a stunning display of human ingenuity and courage. The galaxy would soon learn that Earth wasn't a planet to be trifled with, and for the first time in history, humanity stood united, not as victims, but as warriors determined to protect their home. The battle was far from over, but momentum had shifted. The destruction of the alien flagship sent shockwaves through their fleet, both literally and figuratively. Without a central command, the invaders struggled to regroup. Their once coordinated attacks became chaotic and disjointed. Ships fired blindly, missing targets or accidentally hitting their own forces. It was clear they hadn't expected humanity to fight back, let alone with such ferocity. Rachel Dawson stayed focused at her railgun station, her fingers flying over the controls as she adjusted trajectories and fired again and again. Each shot felt like a punch to the invaders, shattering troop carriers and supply ships before they could reach Earth's surface. Sweat dripped down her face, but she didn't stop. Every second counted. Nearby, technicians shouted updates and coordinates, their voices blending into a steady hum of activity. Rachel barely heard them. Her mind was locked onto the task. She thought about her brother, who lived in one of the cities below. If she failed, he might not survive. That thought kept her going. In space, Jake Monroe led Dagger Wing deeper into enemy territory. The squadron darted between alien ships, avoiding blasts and returning fire with precision. Jake's fighter vibrated with every shot, his instruments flashing warnings as enemy weapons grazed his shields. He ignored them, pushing forward. His team followed close behind, trusting him to guide them through the chaos. One by one, they picked off smaller vessels, clearing a path for the next phase of the operation. Back on Earth, Claire Bennett coordinated ground defenses. Soldiers armed with experimental weapons moved into position, preparing to repel any invaders that managed to land. Among them was Daniel Brooks, a Marine Corps veteran with years of combat experience. He carried a rifle powered by energy-based technology, compact, lightweight, and devastatingly effective. As he led his squad toward an alien stronghold, he reminded himself of the mission: hold the line at all costs. The stronghold loomed ahead, a jagged structure bristling with alien weaponry. Daniel signaled for his team to take cover as they approached. "Stay sharp," he whispered. "We don't know what's inside." Using hand signals, he directed 2 soldiers to flank the entrance while the rest provided covering fire. When the signal came, they moved quickly, storming the building with practiced efficiency. Inside, they found disarray. Alien troops scrambled to respond, their leaders clearly rattled by the sudden loss of communication and coordination. Daniel's team advanced methodically, room by room, neutralizing threats and securing the area. Meanwhile, Ethan Carter monitored the progress of Project Aegis from a secure facility. Massive orbital platforms equipped with energy cannons had come online, raining destruction upon the remaining alien fleet. Ethan watched as streams of golden light sliced through space, tearing apart ships that moments ago seemed invincible. He clenched his fists, overwhelmed by a mix of emotions: relief, pride, and fear. Humanity had built these weapons as a safeguard, never imagining they'd actually be used. Now they were proving decisive in turning the tide of the battle. General Hayes stood in the command center, observing reports pouring in from across the globe. Cities under attack reported successful counteroffensives. Alien forces, demoralized and leaderless, began retreating. Hayes allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. Humanity had done the impossible. They had fought back against overwhelming odds and won. But he knew better than to celebrate too soon. Space was vast, and the galaxy held countless threats. This victory was just the beginning. As the 5th hour drew near, the aliens made one last desperate attempt to regain control. A group of ships broke formation and charged toward Earth, hoping to cause maximum damage before being destroyed. Rachel spotted them on her radar and adjusted her aim. Her railgun roared to life, firing projectiles with incredible speed. One by one, the charging ships exploded, their wreckage burning up in Earth's atmosphere. Jake's squadron intercepted stragglers, finishing off damaged vessels trying to flee. Pilots cheered over the comms as each target was eliminated. For the first time since the invasion began, hope replaced fear. Humanity wasn't just surviving, it was winning. 5 hours after the aliens arrived, resistance ceased entirely. Their remaining ships turned tail and fled, disappearing into the depths of space. On Earth, people erupted in celebration. Cheers echoed through streets, and tears flowed freely. Soldiers embraced, knowing they had protected their home. In the command center, Claire hugged Ethan tightly, both of them overwhelmed by what they had achieved. Humanity had entered the war, and in just 5 hours, it had emerged victorious. The war was over, but the aftermath left everyone shaken. The skies above Earth were quiet now, the alien ships gone, their retreat a chaotic scramble into the void of space. People around the world stepped outside, staring up at the stars with a mix of awe and disbelief. Humanity had faced an enemy from beyond the stars, and won. But the victory came at a cost. Cities bore scars from stray blasts and crashing debris. Families mourned loved ones lost in the brief but brutal conflict. The wounds would take time to heal. Ethan Carter sat alone in the lab where he had spent countless hours perfecting Project Aegis. The energy cannons that had turned the tide of the battle were his creation, but now they felt like strangers to him. He stared at the schematics on his screen, his mind replaying the flashes of light and explosions he'd seen on the monitors. He had built those weapons to protect Earth, not to destroy. Yet, here they were, tools of war that had saved billions of lives. Ethan sighed and leaned back in his chair. Was this what progress looked like? He didn't have an answer. Claire Bennett walked through the command center, which was quieter now but still buzzing with activity. Soldiers and technicians worked tirelessly to assess the damage and rebuild defenses. Claire felt a deep sense of pride for what humanity had accomplished, but she also knew the galaxy wouldn't forget this day. Earth had proven it wasn't weak or helpless. It had shown it could fight back and win. That kind of defiance might attract more trouble in the future. She made a mental note to push for stronger alliances with peaceful alien species. Humanity couldn't face the universe alone. Rachel Dawson stood outside her railgun installation, breathing in the cool mountain air. Her hands were still trembling slightly from the adrenaline of the battle. She had fired dozens of rounds into space, each one aimed to protect her home. Now, as she gazed at the horizon, she felt a strange emptiness. The threat was gone, but the memory of it lingered. Rachel thought about her brother, who had called her earlier to say he was safe. She smiled faintly, grateful for the small victories. Still, she knew she wouldn't sleep easy tonight, or maybe ever again. Jake Monroe returned to Earth a hero, though he didn't feel like one. His squadron had played a crucial role in dismantling the alien fleet, but Jake couldn't stop thinking about the faces of his teammates who hadn't made it back. They had trained together, laughed together, and fought together. Now, they were gone. As he stepped off the shuttle, reporters swarmed him, shouting questions and shoving microphones in his face. Jake ignored them, focusing instead on finding Lily and his dad. When he finally saw them waiting in the crowd, tears welled up in his eyes. He hugged them tightly, vowing silently to never take another moment with them for granted. Daniel Brooks sat in a makeshift camp near the alien stronghold he had helped capture. The structure was dark and silent now, its former occupants either dead or fled. Daniel's rifle rested across his lap, its energy cells depleted. He ran his fingers along the sleek design, marveling at how far human technology had come. This weapon had saved lives today, but it also represented something darker, a reminder that peace wasn't guaranteed. Daniel closed his eyes, listening to the distant hum of repair drones and the murmur of soldiers swapping stories. He wondered if Earth would ever truly be safe. General Hayes addressed the world later that evening, his voice calm but resolute. "Today, humanity showed its strength," he said. "We stood together against an enemy we didn't understand and emerged victorious. But let this be a lesson. We are no longer bystanders in the galaxy. We are participants, and we will defend ourselves if necessary." As the general spoke, Ethan watched the broadcast from his lab. Claire listened from the command center. Rachel tuned in from her mountain post. Jake heard the words while holding his family close. Daniel caught snippets of the speech between sips of coffee. Each of them understood the gravity of the moment. Humanity had taken its first step onto the galactic stage, not as victims or conquerors, but as survivors determined to shape their own destiny. The stars above seemed brighter now, their twinkling light carrying both promise and warning. Earth had won the battle, but the war for its place in the universe was just beginning. The days following the battle were a blur of activity. Earth had won, but the victory came with challenges. Cities needed rebuilding, and people needed healing. The scars of war were everywhere: burnt-out buildings, craters in the streets, and memorials for those who hadn't made it home. Despite the losses, there was a sense of unity among humanity. For the first time in history, nations worked together without hesitation or division. The threat from the stars had forced them to put aside their differences, and now that bond felt stronger than ever. Ethan Carter spent most of his time in the lab, tweaking and improving Project Aegis. The energy cannons had performed beyond expectations, but Ethan knew they could be better. He studied data from the battle, analyzing every shot fired and every target hit. His mind raced with ideas, ways to make the weapons more efficient, more precise, and less destructive. "We don't have to destroy everything," he told Claire one evening. "If we're smarter, we can disable instead of kill." Claire nodded, understanding what he meant. Humanity had fought to survive, but survival wasn't enough. They had to grow wiser too. Claire herself was busy planning for the future. She believed the galaxy would remember Earth's defiance, and not all reactions would be friendly. Some alien species might see humanity as a threat, while others might view them as allies. Claire pushed for diplomatic efforts, urging leaders to reach out to peaceful civilizations. "We can't fight every battle," she said during a meeting, "but we can build friendships. That's how we stay safe." Her words resonated with many, and soon teams of scientists and diplomats began preparing for potential contact with other species. Rachel Dawson returned to her railgun installation, though her role had changed. Instead of firing projectiles into space, she now monitored the skies for any signs of trouble. The massive weapon remained ready, just in case, but Rachel hoped it would never be used again. She spent her days teaching new technicians how to operate the system, sharing stories from the battle to remind them why it mattered. At night, she wrote letters to her brother, describing what she had seen and felt. Writing helped her process everything, turning chaotic memories into something clearer. Jake Monroe tried to adjust to life after the war. People called him a hero, but he didn't feel like one. The faces of his fallen teammates haunted him, their laughter still echoing in his mind. To cope, Jake threw himself into training the next generation of pilots. He taught them everything he knew, emphasizing teamwork and quick thinking. "You're not just flying machines," he told them. "You're protecting lives. Never forget that." When he wasn't teaching, Jake visited schools and community centers, speaking about courage and resilience. He wanted people to know that even in the darkest moments, hope could shine through. Daniel Brooks stayed on duty, helping secure areas where alien forces had landed. The structures left behind were strange and unsettling, filled with technology far beyond human understanding. Scientists swarmed the sites, eager to study what remained. Daniel kept watch, ensuring no surprises emerged. He also took time to talk to younger soldiers, sharing advice and encouragement. "Fear is normal," he told them. "What matters is how you handle it." General Hayes continued to guide humanity's response to the invasion. He oversaw cleanup efforts, coordinated global defense systems, and encouraged research into alien technology. But he also reminded everyone that Earth's greatest strength lay in its people. "We won because we stood together," he said in another address. "That unity must continue. It's our best weapon and our best hope." As weeks passed, life on Earth slowly returned to normal. People rebuilt homes, reopened businesses, and celebrated small victories. Yet the memory of the battle lingered, shaping decisions and dreams. Ethan worked late nights in the lab, imagining a future where humanity explored the stars without fear. Claire drafted plans for alliances, hoping to turn enemies into friends. Rachel kept watch over the skies, determined to protect her planet. Jake inspired others to face challenges head-on, while Daniel stood ready to defend what mattered most. Earth had proven it could win a war in just 5 hours. Now it faced a greater challenge: building a future worth fighting for. The galaxy was vast and full of unknowns, but humanity had taken its first step forward. Together, they would find their place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as explorers seeking peace. Months had passed since the battle, but its impact was still felt everywhere. Earth had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The victory over the alien invaders wasn't just a military triumph. It was a turning point for humanity. People looked at the stars differently now, not with fear or wonder, but with determination. They knew they weren't alone in the universe, and they were ready to face whatever came next. Ethan Carter stood in his lab, surrounded by blueprints and prototypes. His work on Project Aegis had evolved. Instead of focusing solely on weapons, he was designing tools for exploration. "If we're going to meet other species," he told Claire during one of their late-night conversations, "we need to show them we're not just about destruction." He envisioned ships capable of traveling faster and farther, equipped with technology that could communicate across vast distances. It was ambitious, but Ethan believed humanity had proven it could achieve the impossible. Claire Bennett spent her days coordinating efforts to reach out to peaceful alien civilizations. She worked closely with linguists, scientists, and diplomats, crafting messages meant to convey Earth's intentions: peace, cooperation, and mutual respect. The first attempts were cautious. Simple signals sent into space, carrying mathematical patterns and images of Earth. Claire knew it might take years, even decades, for a response, but she didn't mind. The important thing was to try. "We can't wait for trouble to find us again," she said. "We have to take the first step." Rachel Dawson remained at her railgun installation, though her role had shifted. The weapon itself hadn't been fired since the battle, but Rachel stayed vigilant, monitoring the skies for any signs of danger. In her free time, she helped develop new systems to detect incoming threats earlier. She also mentored young technicians, teaching them not just how to operate the railgun, but how to think critically under pressure. "This isn't just a job," she told them. "It's a responsibility to protect everyone down there." Jake Monroe found purpose in training new pilots. He pushed them hard, knowing the galaxy wouldn't always be kind. But he also shared stories of hope, how humanity had come together, how ordinary people had done extraordinary things. "You're not just flying machines," he reminded them. "You're carrying the hopes of billions." When he wasn't teaching, Jake traveled across the globe, speaking to crowds about resilience and courage. His words inspired many, especially children who dreamed of becoming pilots or engineers. Daniel Brooks continued to serve, helping secure areas where alien technology had been left behind. Scientists studied the remnants carefully, learning as much as they could. Daniel kept watch, ensuring no unexpected dangers emerged. He also spent time reflecting on what the battle had taught him. That strength wasn't just about weapons or tactics. It was about standing together, even when the odds seemed impossible. General Hayes watched it all unfold with quiet pride. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged stronger. But he knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. The galaxy was vast and full of unknowns, some of which might not welcome Earth's rise. Still, Hayes believed in humanity's potential. "We've shown we can fight, he said in a speech. "Now let's show we can build a better world, a brighter future." As Earth moved forward, people began to dream bigger. Cities rebuilt themselves with new technologies, powered by energy systems inspired by Project Aegis. Schools added courses on space exploration and interstellar diplomacy. Artists painted murals of heroes like Jake and Rachel, while writers told stories of bravery and unity. Humanity wasn't just recovering, it was thriving. The stars above seemed closer now, their light guiding humanity toward new horizons. Earth had proven it could win a war in 5 hours. Now, it faced a greater challenge, building a legacy worth remembering. Together, humanity would step into the unknown, not as conquerors or victims, but as explorers seeking connection and understanding. The journey was just beginning. Years passed, and Earth continued to grow stronger. The memory of the 5-hour war remained vivid in everyone's minds, a reminder of how fragile yet resilient humanity could be. But life moved on, and so did humanity's dreams. The galaxy was no longer something to fear. It was a place to explore, to understand, and perhaps even to call home. Ethan Carter stood on the observation deck of the first interstellar ship ever built by humans. It was sleek and massive, powered by engines that Ethan himself had helped design. He gazed at the stars through the large windows, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. This mission wasn't about conquest or defense. It was about discovery. For the first time, humanity would leave its solar system and venture into the unknown. Ethan thought about all the late nights, the failures, and the breakthroughs that had led to this moment. "We're ready," he whispered to himself. Claire Bennett sat in the communication room aboard the same ship, overseeing the systems designed to send messages back to Earth. Her team had worked tirelessly to create protocols for contacting alien civilizations. They carried pre-recorded greetings, images of Earth's beauty, and symbols of peace. Claire knew there was no guarantee of success, but she believed in the importance of trying. "If we want allies," she often said, "we have to take the first step." Rachel Dawson watched from Earth as the ship launched into space. She stood outside her railgun installation, now inactive but still standing as a monument to humanity's resilience. Rachel felt a pang of sadness knowing she wouldn't be part of the journey, but she also felt immense pride. The world she had helped protect was now reaching for the stars. "Take care of them," she murmured, looking up at the bright trail left by the departing ship. Jake Monroe piloted the ship alongside other experienced pilots. His hands rested calmly on the controls as he guided the vessel through the darkness of space. He glanced at the crew around him, scientists, engineers, and explorers, all united by a shared dream. Jake thought about his sister Laylee and his father, who had come to see him off. Their smiles gave him strength. "This is for you," he said softly, repeating the words he had spoken during the battle years ago. Daniel Brooks remained on Earth, helping safeguard the planet while humanity ventured outward. He visited schools often, sharing stories of the war and the lessons learned. "Strength isn't just about fighting," he told students. "It's about protecting what matters most and building a better future." Daniel hoped that one day, humanity wouldn't need soldiers like him anymore. Until then, he stood ready, ensuring Earth remained safe. General Hayes watched the launch from a command center, his chest swelling with pride. Humanity had come so far since the invasion. From scattered nations to a united species, Earth had proven it could adapt and overcome. Hayes knew challenges lay ahead, but he trusted humanity to face them together. "We've earned our place among the stars," he said during a final address before the mission. "Let's make sure we honor it." As the ship traveled farther from Earth, its crew marveled at the wonders of the universe. They encountered strange planets, dazzling nebulae, and mysteries waiting to be unraveled. Each discovery brought new questions, but also new possibilities. Back on Earth, people followed the mission closely, their imaginations sparked by the reports sent back. Children dreamed of becoming explorers, scientists, or diplomats. Adults looked to the skies with hope, knowing humanity was no longer bound by its own limitations. The galaxy was vast and unpredictable, but humanity had taken its first steps beyond the familiar. Earth had shown it could fight when needed, but it had also proven it could build, create, and dream. The 5-hour war had been a test, a challenge that humanity had passed with courage and unity. Now it faced a new era, one filled with promise and potential. The stars above seemed closer than ever, their light guiding humanity forward. Together, they would forge a future not defined by fear or conflict, but by curiosity and connection. Earth had entered the galactic stage, not as victims, conquerors, or bystanders, but as explorers determined to find their place among the cosmos. And though the journey would be long, humanity knew it was worth every step.